You're listening to episode 56 of the Comics Pals. We're a group of comic book journalists and friends who record a podcast together because we don't talk enough about comics in our daily lives.
Yesterday we saw Brandon Routh, Val Kilmer, Grant Gustin, Roman Reigns, and Linda Carter team up against the threat of the White Martians with the help of Hawkgirl and the Martian Manhunter in Justice League the movie. And it was a movie, all right.
Man, that would be a better movie than the one I saw.
Well, gosh, guys, let's not give everything away in the first 10 seconds of our show, you know?
Jesus.
Yeah, what do we fill during sex?
So, we're back for another one of these things we call the Comics Pals. Obviously, we live in a post-Justice League world. It's an interesting world, and we'll get into that stuff a little bit later when we do our review. Needless to say, though, it's an experience. It's an experience, and I'm glad I had it.
You're making a real hard stand there.
It was definitely a movie, and I definitely watched it.
I did, yeah. I did.
I'm alive.
Hot takes over here.
Yeah, I went through a lot to see this movie. I went to the theater and saw it at 10 at night and paid to see it in IMAX. Which I had no intentions of doing. I love IMAX, but listen.
But like, God, they're like $10 more, aren't they?
It's $6 more.
Okay.
Now I only do that for special movies, right?
Are you implying Justice League isn't special?
It is.
Man,
special.
I went into this movie knowing I wasn't going to do anything special for this movie. This movie's lucky I got a drink and popcorn for it.
Listen, Cale, this isn't your time to bash the movie. We're not bashing. All right? I'm simply telling you.
Look, I'm just saying I have a scale for how I plan to watch the movie. I spent
What is that scale?
spent $7.50 on this ticket for a 7:45 showing, and I paid $7 for a drink and popcorn. No, that's not true. The last part's not true.
That was Cale Scale, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so let's address two things. Number one, you just lied on the podcast, okay? So you're a confirmed liar.
Fucking fake news,
yeah.
Cale.
Number two,
Hold on. Hold on.
Go ahead.
We've been doing this for how many episodes? 57?
Six.
56 episodes.
Now he doesn't even know how many episodes we've done.
Look at that.
Can you believe this, Sean? Can you believe this?
Unreal.
It's straight canon that I'm a liar.
It's on my character sheet.
The Cale of Justice is tipping here.
Did you just say Cale of Justice? We're done. How long? We're done. The show's over.
Wait, oh my God. Do you guys remember that shot from the trailer where Wonder Woman was standing on top of the Cale of Justice? I loved it.
Oh.
Now I'd watch that movie.
The other part that I wanted to point out was that you paid $7. I paid $23 to see Justice League. And I paid $23 twice because I took my girlfriend. So let's not even get into all of that because that's ridiculous, all right? I didn't get out of the theater until 1 in the morning, and I didn't get home until 2. So I had a long night with Justice League and a lot of time to think about what I saw. And so I'm going to grace everybody with the thoughts that I had during that period a little later in the show. However...
Right now.
Not right now. However, if you want to find us, we're all over the internet. You can do so, first of all, by reaching out to us on iTunes. You can leave us a rating on there. We're 5-star rated podcast. That's never going to change for a few reasons. And let's not deliberately change it either, you know? You can also...
That'll never change unless you guys want to fuck with us.
Right. Don't do that. That's rude. Save your negative reviews for Justice League. You can also find us on all other podcast hosting platforms, including SoundCloud, which you guys tend to favor. So continue to check us out on there. We are at The Comics Pals, wherever your social media is sold. And you can write to us, thecomicspals@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on Justice League, and which Justice League character was your favorite if you have seen the movie. If you haven't, then don't write to us at all because you are living in the past. Last but not least, we are on YouTube, where you can like this video, leave us a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Help us get to 100 subscribers. That's the goal. Let's do that. If we could do that by the new year, that'd be really cool. I like new year, new pals, you know? And getting to 100 subscribers would do that for us. So make that give the pals the gift of 100 subscribers. So let's do our buy or sell for the week.
Hold on.
Let's jump right into it. What's up?
I was just looking at our reviews, just because I do it every now and then, just to see if there are any new ones. There's one from October 8th, 2017. 5 stars, titled Incredible Analysis. Here's the text. Phil sounds very cute.
I wonder who wrote that.
Nick Thunderbender.
I don't know who that is.
So wherever you are, Nick, here's a little Phil soundbite for you.
I'm on the spot now. Listen, Nick, I'm Phil Casey, and I'm here to tell you that my opinions on everything are absolute and the best. Keep on listening, baby.
Wait, real quick. Give him just rub your beard on the mic a little bit too. Yeah, that's good stuff. All right.
We'll CGI that in there, and it'll be.
All right. So here's our buy or sell. In the spirit of Justice League, since we're celebrating that film,
You better be real careful how you ask this question.
You don't even know the question, Jack.
I'm just saying.
No, Sean. Cale.
Oh my god, dude, he was drinking water. Why would you do that? I just watched Sean almost destroy his microphone.
Oh man.
This episode's about to crash.
Okay, all right. So here's the question. Here's the buy or sell. If you could only read stories about one member of the Justice League that appeared in the movie, which member would it be? So you can only read stories about one individual. The other stories do not exist. There are no more stories ever for those characters.
So are these the versions from the movie, or are these like just the
comics? You can only read stories about these characters in the comics.
Oh, Wonder Woman.
Why?
I think she has the most to offer out of all the characters, like personally. Like in the movie and outside.
Definitely in the movie.
Yeah, definitely in the movie. And she's just like a super strong character, and one that it's sometimes like you can kind of relate to in certain senses based off like books I've read and then just like stuff I've seen in the movie. That's it.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna say the Flash.
I actually felt like you would.
I'm kind of it's grinding against my my more Batman sensibilities. Like I think I've read more Batman stories that were probably better. Like I think Batman typically has better stories, but I think the Flash is a little more long-ranging in the things that he can do.
How about you, PD?
I really don't know. I'm torn between any one of the Trinity because I feel like I feel like I've read great stories about each of them, and I think like the reason that they are the Trinity is because they have so much potential for, you know, good superhero storytelling. So it's like hard to pick one as just like the best of the best. Like I feel like I'm inclined to say Wonder Woman, but I feel like that's because I read a lot of Wonder Woman this year in preparation for the movie, and like, you know, I'm high on her because of the movie and Justice League. So like that feels like a knee-jerk answer, but that's kind of where I went with it. So since it's not an easy choice, I think I'm going to stick with my gut on this one and say Wonder Woman.
All right, Nick, listen closely.
All right, listen up, Nikki.
This may not come as a surprise to you, but my choice, Steppenwolf.
Sack of shit.
He's the Justice League MVP. I know everyone is saying he's the best because it's the truth.
Probably the best representation of a supervillain we've ever gotten.
Ever!
Man, he was one horny villain, I tell you what.
Just like you, Cale.
How dare you?
No, I'm definitely picking Superman. Like, he's my boy.
Yeah, of course.
He's my boy, Blue.
Yeah, I see that. For me, it's got to be Batman. I obviously have read a ton of Batman over the years, and I would love to continue to do that. If I couldn't do that, I'd be devastated. So Batman, I could sacrifice all of those other characters easily without even thinking about it for more Batman.
You're not wearing hockey pads.
You're right. Actually right. Okay.
You're actually right.
Wow, what a shock.
I mean, it's not often that Phil's right on this show. So,
Or that Sean doesn't wear hockey pads.
Horny Cale.
is that going to be a thing now? Because I don't want to think of Cale as aroused.
Man, I don't either.
Especially because we also like to think of him as a grandpa, and there's nothing fun about a horny grandpa.
Master Roshi.
All right. Yeah,
Got him.
Cale is kind of a Master Roshi figure.
Turtle Hermit.
He never taught me how to do no Kamehamehas, though.
It's because you're not the chosen one, dickless.
Wow.
What the fuck? He taught it to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, and also my dick is fully functional. I'll have you know, Cale.
All right, Lieutenant Data.
All right. So, this is turning into an entirely different show, and to avoid that, we're going to do some pals pulls. So we're going to start with Pete, who is looking forward to quite a few books this week. Both Marco and Pete are looking forward to Snotgirl number 8.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just I just wish more people read this book.
Honestly.
I have a real fear it's not going to make it past this arc, and I really, really like it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if you ever enjoyed Scott Pilgrim, go give this one a shot, please, because it's critically acclaimed and not so great in the sales department. So
you also chose Rat Queens number 6.
yeah, I shouted out Rat Queens a while ago again, where it's like a series I really love and have a weird relationship with. I still haven't gotten back to it, but I've heard a lot of good things about the current run from friend of the show Matt Murphy, and every time I see a new issue of it, I keep getting the grind to go back to it. So I think I'm finally gonna just go grab some of the leftovers at one of my LCB comic book stores and try to catch up.
All right. You also chose Superman American Alien trade paperback.
Yeah, this book, I think I've talked about it on the show before. I was a huge fan of American Alien. It's written by Max Landis, who's primarily known as a screenwriter. But he also is known as being a big Superman fan because of his YouTube video. I forget what it's called, but he has this whole thing about the death and return of Superman, I think. And he finally got his shot to write the character, and I think he did a really good job with it. It gets a lot of what I think's important about the core of Superman, right? And definitely is kind of a fun young Superman story, and it's self-contained in its own universe, so it's not bogged down with any kind of continuity or anything like that. So if that's something that sounds appealing to you, I would definitely highly recommend it. I thought it was a great read. It's only 6 issues, so pretty brisk.
Phil, have you read that?
I bought it last summer, and I haven't read it yet.
Cool. I'll buy it, and then we can read it.
I want to read it. I mean,
Oh, let's do a book club. I would totally reread that shit. I love that book.
all right,
It's short.
fucking all right.
Cool. You heard it here.
And then Marco and Pete also chose, and Cale actually, all chose Void Trip number 1.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, baby.
Shout outs to our boys, Ryan O'Sullivan and Plaid Klaus. Yeah. Go check out the interview we did with them about the book. We got to read issue 1. We loved it. I'm buying it to support it, and because I want that issue 1. I'm sure I'll read it again, but yeah, they used my pull quote in the marketing. I said it was one of the best comics I read this year. I stand by that.
Yeah, we are huge fans of those guys, and that's a book that, even though I didn't necessarily choose it, I will be picking up, and I am excited to have in my hands. So now Phil and I, to be honest, we chose the only book that really matters.
Goddamn drum roll.
Doomsday Clock number 1 is upon us, It drops this week. We are insanely excited for it. They're releasing it on Tuesday night, and I'm going to try to get to Midtown Comics in order to pick that up, because this is the most monumental release easily of the, of this decade. So I just can't wait for it. We've talked a lot about it. We're going to talk a lot more about it when it comes out. Phil, what are your words?
The clock strikes midnight, my friend, because Doomsday is upon us. And what else is there to say? Jeff Johns and Gary Frank are among the best creative teams of all time, and this book looks huge. I mean, I understand people have apprehension about the Watchmen, but the reality is this is a love letter. This is not a cash-in, and this is an opportunity to do something really meaningful with the DC universe and the Watchmen. So give it a chance, because, like Sean said, this is the event of the decade.
Yep. Also want to shout out colorist Brad Anderson, who is working on this book with the dynamic duo. He's fantastic, so just want to make sure that that's known. We've read the first 6 pages. They're out. They're consumable. If you are in doubt about what this series is going to be, you can go check those out for yourself. Real quick, I want to ask you guys, do you anticipate that this first issue is going to live up to the hype?
The first issue?
Yeah,
no.
First issue.
Not really.
Probably not, but it's okay. It's a setup issue.
Yeah.
I think your mileage is going to vary. I think some people are going to be satiated by this. I think, especially if they haven't already seen the first 6 pages, I think there's already kind of a cool moment there that I think will be a pop for some fans. And I'm sure there are other moments like that in the book. But I think cynical comic fans are cynical comic fans, and there's going to be people who complain about the first issue, even if they are satisfied with the entire project, because, I think first issues are oftentimes a tough sell. Sometimes it is really hard to meaningfully set up what's going on and also deliver on a really satisfying issue that isn't just kind of laying groundwork. But I feel like that's a little easier with these characters because we have history with them. So I don't know. I honestly think it's gonna be good.
I think it's a tough sell for a lot of people, and it's not going to please everyone because of the concept.
That's true too.
I think that this first issue actually already has lived up to the hype. Especially if we're talking about on a personal level. The first 6 pages are masterful. Rarely do you get to read a comic where the creators have so obviously put so much effort into every single detail that you get to see, and that's apparent in the first 6 pages. And that's all they showed us. So I can only imagine what the rest of the book is like.
For anyone who's not really up to speed, you could definitely read this, I think, as its own project. Definitely read Watchmen if you've never read that. But you'll probably need to read Rebirth #1 and The Button. Otherwise, I think you're pretty good just to go in. Pretty self-contained.
Do you have to read The Button for that, or is that just for added context?
I think it's added context.
Okay.
So the button has more to do with Flashpoint. It has more to do with Flashpoint than it does with Doomsday Clock. So Button is kind of like an addendum to Flashpoint, which is an old story at this point, but it's still worth your while if you care. If you don't have time, if you don't have money, whatever, you can go into Doomsday Clock dry. The only thing you have to know is who these characters are. You obviously are going to know all the DC characters, so if you've read Watchmen, you're good to go.
Yeah, that's really it.
Yep. So again, we'll be talking about that more next week when it does drop, but looking forward to that book quite a bit. So let's jump into the news here. We've got some news to talk about. First, Deadpool 2 got a trailer released this week. It's an interesting trailer because it doesn't contain a ton of footage from the actual movie. What did you guys think of this trailer?
I loved it. It was a really good parody, like for Bob Ross, and I think like the way that they played with like the artwork in the background, and, like a lot of the just like the stuff that they did was really funny. And I'm kind of glad that they didn't include like footage from the movie. I feel like Deadpool is a character where you don't really need that, because his whole thing is like, or like a part of him is him being like meta or whatever, and like breaking that fourth wall and being able to interact with audiences, and then so him being able to reach out into that pop culture and just then make him like just a trailer based on that. I think it's cool. The parts where they actually introduced like the movie kind of threw me off, because I was like, oh, I guess it's still a trailer. But other than that, I thought it was good. It was funny.
I will say I definitely agree with your point about, I like that Deadpool's marketing and the character lends itself to having trailers that are actually like unique pieces of content versus like spoiling the entire movie for me in a trailer. We got a lot of cuts of all over from the movie, but like most of it was just this surprisingly long bit, you know, and like I thought it was funny at first. I thought it overstayed its welcome a little bit. But yeah, I thought it was a good trailer. I much prefer that kind of trailer to the standard superhero or blockbuster fare, for sure.
So I'm probably in the minority in that I didn't really care for this all that much. I definitely laughed. I thought there were some funny moments, but I'm not really here for this. You know, if I'm going to tune into a trailer, kind of just want to see clips from the movie. That being said, there is a problem with trailers where they show too much. And this trailer definitely, the format, the way they handled it, allowed them to skirt that problem. So that's cool. And it was a funny bit. So, you know, I guess kudos, but it just didn't work for me the way it worked for everybody else.
I would say I'm pretty in line with you on this, I think.
I watched it twice, and like the first time I thought it was, you know, funny. Like I get it. It's cashing in on that nostalgia
cute, right?
element of the Bob Ross stuff. But the second time I was like, all right, I get it.
I mean, that's the problem with like references and parodies, is that there's a shelf life to it and there's no rewatch value. And in general, that's like the whole Deadpool shtick, and I'm not really into it in any form. And so, I mean, the trailer didn't do anything for me. It is what it is.
I think in that case, you know, it's good that this was a trailer, right? And not just, you know, the actual movie, because that would have been awful. But
I don't know. A movie of Deadpool Bob Ross?
If they really hard committed to it, I could see it being brilliant.
Yeah, and to be fair to this trailer, this is a movie that's not out until June. So I don't know that we really need to see a ton anyways. You know, I think trailers tend to come out a little too early in comparison to when the actual movie's release. So this is fine, you know, showing us a little bit, keeping Deadpool in our minds, you know, that's all good.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get a more traditional trailer closer to the actual movie, which I think will actually be to their benefit, because by the time we see it, it'll actually be imminent, you know? We won't have seen the same recycled scenes 2 or 3 times over.
Right, exactly. So the trailer doesn't show us a ton, but it does give us some glimpses of what we can maybe expect. So one of the shots that the trailer does include is of an individual that could be Pyro, just because there's fire everywhere and stuff like that. So it gives the impression that it's Pyro. But it looks like he's in a church. And in the background, what we can see are some banners that have apocalyptic, you know, religious-esque messages like prepare yourself, the end is near, pure blood, purity, humanity, infinity. So that gives the impression that in this movie they're dealing with the Purifiers. So the Purifiers are a villain that are a group that has plagued the X-Men many, many times over the years. They're led by William Stryker, who in the movies, he was an X2. In the movies, he's a military person. In the comics, he's actually a preacher who is very staunchly anti-mutant. And the Purifiers are his heavies. That's actually really cool if that's where this is going, because the Purifiers are the main villain of the X-Force. And this movie includes Domino, Deadpool, and Cable, which is 3 members of traditional X-Force teams. So they could be using this as a jumping on point to the X-Force film.
Could be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be about that. Totally. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm looking forward to this. I really liked Deadpool 1 for what it was, and like, I don't love Deadpool, but I definitely really enjoyed the character a lot when I was a little more of an edgy teenager, and like, I think the films are like the exact kind of thing I want to experience Deadpool with now, Like, I'm not necessarily going to read a Deadpool monthly, but I could definitely get down for another Deadpool movie.
Yeah, I actually am not a Deadpool fan really at all. I've only liked him one time, and that was during Rick Remender's X-Force. That said, I enjoyed the movie, but I could do without another one. I appreciated it more for the fact that I could tell that it was well made and cared about the character, rather than me actually, being in love with what it was.
I get that.
Yeah. In other X-Men film news, it looks like they're working on a multiple man movie with James Franco playing the main character, Jamie Madrox.
It's like, what?
It's super, super random. But apparently... sorry?
I mean, I guess they had to get James Franco in a superhero franchise eventually.
He was in the original Spider-Man movies, too.
Yeah, he was.
I think this is his idea.
Actually, so Deadline is reporting that James Franco and Simon Kinberg, who is directing Dark Phoenix and a producer on all the X-Men movies, they worked on a movie called The Hardy Men, which is them it's James Franco and Dave Franco playing grown-up versions of the Hardy Boys. And that movie that movie was written by Kinberg. And so on that set, they kind of bonded and came up with this idea for a multiple man movie that would be written by Alan Heinberg, who wrote Wonder Woman, the movie, and has written a ton of comic books. I'm a huge fan of his.
Yo, that sounds cool.
The pedigree's there. There.
Well, and it's also just like, this is the kind of movie that could be good because nobody gives a shit about this character.
Right.
Like, there's no baggage, so it's just like, it could just be whatever, like, it could just be good.
Yeah.
There's no expectation for it.
Multiple Man is a really cool character, who, most people who know him would know him from X Factor. But he's definitely got leading man potential, especially when you tag an actor onto the film like James Franco, who has been, a leading man in Hollywood for many years. I think this could be really good, especially if you throw in a few comic book characters and things like that. Maybe even set up X Factor for the future.
Yeah, right. Like, maybe you throw in 1 or 2 more well-known X-Men characters. You get a couple other, like, notable actors in this, and really just have some fun with it. Like, fuck yeah, man. Like, this could be really, really cool.
I think that James Franco is actually a very, very capable and talented executive as well. Whenever James Franco gets behind a project, I think it turns out usually pretty good. He's a smart guy. I think he's Harvard educated, has like a doctorate and shit, and like English. So he's like very, very knowledgeable and creating, a fictional story. So I think a multiple man movie with James Franco behind it has a lot of potential. And Sean, you mentioned who's writing it, and I think this could be really good, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this has all the makings of like a really interesting movie, maybe.
Cale, what are your thoughts? I feel like this could be up your alley.
I don't really know the multiple man character. I do pretty generally enjoy characters of this fashion with powers that are just a little bit off the wall. So yeah, I think I think something like this could be good, could be fun. I am not super pumped about James Franco. He's not one of my favorite people that, you know, has the spotlight or has any sort of attention, but I mean, if it's got to be anybody, why not?
Sure. The one cool thing for those of you who aren't familiar with Multiple Man is that he splits his body, and there are copies of him, but the copies actually have personalities of their own. So that can make for a legitimately really fun movie, especially when you consider that the villain will probably be Multiple Man. He'll be the hero and the villain in his own movie.
Dude, like, I could see a version of this where you really play it like a comedy, too. And, like, that works. Like, that makes so much sense with that dynamic of just, like, James Franco acting against a dick version of James Franco. like, that could be fucking great, you know, and have, like, a lot of really mundane superhero problems of just, like, oh, you know, like, he fucking upset his girlfriend because the mean Multiple Man went and saw her or whatever. Or, like, he gets fired or, like, that kind of stuff. Like, very, like, I don't know, like, 90s, like, Jim Carrey liar style.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I could really see that working really fucking well in, like, a small scale, personal stakes superhero movie.
Well, you could start out with a really simplified, like, sitcom-y thing where it's like, I have too many engagements at once. I have to be at work. I have a date. I gotta do chores around the house.
Yeah.
And it quickly just backfires.
Right. Yeah. No, like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm into this. Like, this sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think there's big potential.
And it's like, he has a lot of buddies who are really talented who you could probably get involved too. You know, like, he's done so much work.
Well, and I think this is the kind of stuff that, like, eventually superhero stories are going to have to evolve into, especially at the movies. You know,
yeah, if they want to be sustainable,
like with stuff like Legion, which, I mean, Legion obviously isn't a movie, but like the quality of that show, like, is movie like. So, but you know, stuff like Logan or Deadpool, even,
or even Ant-Man.
Yeah, stuff that's just slightly off the wall, so slightly genre, I think will push the genre further than than right now it kind of has the ability to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Fox's credit, Fox has definitely in the recent years been trying to do that.
The recent ones.
The most recent.
Like
the stuff that's currently in production right now has been really interesting.
Like the past 3.
Like
Philip.
You look at New Mutants, right? It's a horror movie.
Horror, right?
That's incredible. You know, never thought I'd see that, and it's a spin that I wouldn't have imagined for those characters. So, but we'll table that for now. But Fox doing some interesting things with their X-Men franchise. Now let's talk about something that I'm not nearly as excited about. This is Sony, who has announced several projects that are in development that are spin-offs of Spider-Man that won't include Spider-Man, that aren't established in any way, is now working on a Morbius film. This is coming from the Hollywood...
Now, hang on. I get yelled at when I do that.
Wait, we can't joke. Hold on. This is serious. My friend Pete might be dead. He collapsed. Oh, no! Oh, my God!
All of a sudden, Pete's got an opinion, so something's directly affecting him, so he can groan at the news.
All right, you know what, Cale? It's different when I do it as a bit in the news versus in the middle of a review. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
I think Pete's just excited because he really wants to see these movies.
All right. Let's get into it. So the Hollywood Reporter is saying that this movie is in development, that it's been in development in secret at the studio.
Yeah.
And that it's being written by Burke Sharpless and Matt Sazama, who worked on Power Rangers, Dracula Untold, and Gods of Egypt.
Oh, good.
I love
Does
all
it-
those
that
movies.
pedigree.
Does it say which Power Rangers they worked on? Because
The recent.
are you sure?
Power Rangers Lost in Space.
Yeah.
The recent movie, yeah. So, yes, Morbius is coming.
I like Morbius.
Yeah, me too. That's why I'm
He's like-
super not excited about this.
He's like that one character I actually know about.
That's so random. What do you know about Morbius, dude?
He's like
He's green. He lives in a swamp.
he's
Welcome to the Marco Knows segment.
he's like
Where
a
Marco tells us
vampire or
about
whatever, and
comics
he
characters.
like I only know him from the cartoon. He's like a vampire or whatever, and he's like not enemies with Spider-Man, but they're like they have conflicts. And I think I think isn't Morbius like in love with somebody or something? Is
Yes.
that like his character or
Yes.
part of his character?
On
Yeah,
the show,
that's,
he's in love with Liz Allen, yes.
yeah, that's all I know.
Wow.
That was Marco Knows.
That was. I mean-
Ba-da-ba-ba-da.
It isn't Felicia Hardy in the show.
oh, you're right. Wait, is it? You might be
think
right.
it's
It could be
Felicia
Felicia.
Hardy.
I have such vague memeries about that fucking show. Like, I don't really. I think it might have been Black Cat though.
Actually,
I
no.
mean, you were kind of young for that.
It's
and
Liz.
that's-
I was.
It's Liz because they worked in the lab together. Remember?
I
See,
could've
I
swore it was
don't even remember Liz being in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
They,
sound like Tommy Wiseau.
they worked in the lab
Felicia-
together, I'm sure. You know what? I don't know. Could be wrong.
Felicia, I feel like took.
There's. I love when we get Sean off on a tangent like that. That he's just like, you know what? This is so not important right now.
Yeah, so this is just like, why? This is one of those. You put this in the
Yeah.
why category. Fine. Morbius. I like the character. Does he need a solo film? No.
Yes.
Could it be good? Sure. But not when you're telling me that the person who wrote Gods of Egypt is writing this movie. I just can't.
Like that's the thing is like on its face it's not a good idea, and then it's like, oh, these are the guys attached to it, and it's like, what was the last example we had? Oh, he wrote Wonder Woman. Okay, all right, cool. What did these guys write? The Power Rangers movie, and then 2 movies I've never heard of.
Hold on, don't bring the Power Rangers into this because that was a decent time. I'm not saying it was the best time, but it was decent.
But that's my point, Cale, is it was a decent time. That's not enough to get me excited. We should aspire to more than that.
Look, all I'm saying is don't compare Power Rangers to Gods of Egypt.
I agree with that. Gods
That's
of
fair.
Egypt was
That's fair.
extremely bad.
Like they probably had help. Somebody held their hand during Power Rangers.
That's the thing, is like 10 fucking people wrote that movie.
Yeah, so like, come off the Power Rangers, all right?
Fair enough. So Marvel's Inhumans recently wrapped. It aired its final episode on Friday. And
I'm surprised they aired all of them.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor this too much, but listen, we've talked about this show quite a bit, and I do want to have the final word on Inhumans because the chances of a season 2 are very low.
Did you watch any of it?
Hell no. Let's talk numbers here. The finale pulled in 1.9 million viewers overall, and it got a 0.5 in the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. Reported by Deadline, the show actually retained 100% of the lead-in from Once Upon a Time in the target demographic, and 81% of its lead-in audience overall, that never happens. It's super rare. However, this is the great part. The show also dragged down ABC's 2020 to some of its lowest ratings in history. In fact, thanks to the Inhumans, NBC's Dateline has doubled 2020's ratings in the fall season.
That's funny.
That is awful. Now, this article that I'm reading from is from comicbook.com, and I love the following quote. In the end, it's hard to avoid the conclusion that Inhumans is anything but a complete failure. One of the worst that the Marvel Cinematic Universe franchise has ever seen. I just love how succinctly this writer put that, because that is absolutely perfect. The IMAX failure, they released it in IMAX theaters, and that went really bad. The television series ratings have been abysmal, the worst for anything Marvel has done, and it didn't show any signs of life throughout the entire series. And so here we are to eulogize the Inhumans.
Dearly beloved.
Does anyone want to say some words about this show that only lasted 9 episodes and has died a terrible death?
Man, we didn't watch it.
Excuse me. Let me say a few words here. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to mourn the loss of a superhero franchise that no one wanted except Sean, except he wanted a good one. We remember dearly that this show had the potential to be something maybe decent, but the reality is Disney and Marvel, high on their horse with their hubris, fell off a mighty steed. And now we eulogize and bury it forever. Amen.
We'll miss you, Nick.
Nick?
I was bringing back the Nick part.
But Nick didn't die.
All right.
Oh my god.
No, his last name's Thunderbender. He's totally an Inhuman.
Possibly.
Please, a moment of silence.
Okay, that's enough.
Yeah. So we'll see what the future of the Inhumans holds. I don't believe in a new season, but I could see these characters being resurrected at some point. So let's talk comics a little bit. Marvel has obviously been under fire over the last couple years for a variety of choices, and you tend to imagine that these are coming from the top down, which would mean that Axel Alonso is somebody that, you know, people have aimed their ire at over the years. He is the editor-in-chief at Marvel, except that he is no longer the editor-in-chief of Marvel. He has left Marvel Comics, and C.B. Cebulski has been elevated into the editor-in-chief seat. This is absolutely massive news for Marvel, and I'm very, very interested in what that's going to mean. Axel Alonso was the editor-in-chief for 6 years. He began in 2011 and is leaving Marvel altogether. C.B. Cebulski has done everything there is to do. He was a freelance writer. He was an editor at Marvel, president of international brand management. He reviewed portfolios for artists at different conventions, and he's been there for a very, very long time. So I don't think that there's anybody there who is more entrenched in what Marvel does than CB is, and I'm very personally excited to see what he brings to the table. Thoughts?
What does Axel do next?
I don't know. I believe he has writing aspirations. I don't know the internal workings of why he left, if there was, if he was forced out or, how the decision was made. But I know that his run as editor-in-chief has not been regarded well by fans.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if he has writing aspirations, like, you can't be an editor-in-chief and also be writing. So, like...
Dan DiDio did it.
I mean...
Stan Lee did it.
I'm not saying that no one does it. I'm just saying, like, especially in the current day and age, it's challenging. And I know, like, when I talked to Jerry at New York Comic Con, like, he said, like, that was kind of why he did it for literally a month and a half. And he was just kind of like, I just want to write, So, like, it could be an easy thing of just like, you know what? Like, I'm unpopular. It's not going well. I'd rather be writing. Like, fuck it.
Cale, you had something to say?
I was going to say that Dan DiDio comparison, but look at what he's been on and look at how it's gone. Like, he's not very well. Good.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Axel's been on for 10 years. I feel like I can remember when it switched from Quesada to Axel.
He took on the role in 2011.
Okay. Yeah, like, I don't know. I guess that's, it's not a long period of time where it's like, oh, he should have been gone a long time ago. But it's also short enough that, you know, he could try out a couple things. So I guess, yeah, this probably feels about right, you know, to get him to try a couple of events that didn't work super well.
I
think
know
for the most part.
in Pete's heart of hearts that he misses Joe Quesada most of all, and he wants him to come back as editor-in-chief of Marvel.
Please no.
I actually do legitimately feel that way.
You know, honestly, it's funny. I like to play up my distaste for him. My entire like issue with him comes from a thing he wrote about Spider-Man. He was fine as an executive. Like, I never really like had a problem with him as the editor-in-chief.
Oh, well, I wasn't a fan.
His communication with the audience was amazing. Very personable guy. I mean, you know, I've never made any bones about the fact that the stuff that came out from Marvel during his tenure there as editor-in-chief is my favorite stuff they've done. So obviously I would be in favor of that. But, you know, putting that aside, I think CB is the right guy for the job. He has a very keen eye for great art. One of the statements that he made, let me see if I have that here, but I will just talk about it while I look. One of the statements that he made was essentially that he wants to see letterers get highlighted more, colorists get highlighted more. Actually, here's
cool.
the quote. We always hear about the writers and artists, but people forget the inkers and the colorists and the letterers. Each of them is an artist in their own right. And so his commitment is to trying to put teams together that are going to be impactful beyond just the writer and artist. He doesn't want those other creators to be throwaways, you know? And it can feel like that. So that's already awesome.
It's a cool stance.
It's not only a cool stance. I think seeing somebody like this rise up to a leadership role is always like good, right? Like somebody who you said like has done it in every capacity. He worked as a freelancer. He worked as a staff writer. He worked as an editor. You know, it's like he's done all of it. And if he's got a good eye for art, he really cares about the product and also understands the business in a meaningful way. Like that's the kind of person you want at the head of a creative corporation like this, because, you know, it's like Marvel's a corporation, but their export is art, and like the art's been struggling, and to have somebody that really gets the process, at the top, I think is hugely meaningful. And that's not to say that like, you know, that his predecessor or that, you know, other people who I don't necessarily like some of the decisions they make didn't understand it. But like you said, it seems like he's really well equipped for the job. And I think Marvel could definitely use some new leadership right now. I think like it's in need of a shakeup right now, and fresh blood with a new vision could really, you know, be what they need.
I also think, really quick, that he's the kind of guy that people want to write for. He was the editor on Runaways, which is obviously a massive success. There's a show currently airing about that. And on top of that, this guy lives in Shanghai. His main job right now is building the brand of Marvel outside of the US. And he's been doing that for some time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, a big reason why we've seen over the years some of these collaborations with Asia and different places like that is because of him and what he's been able to do outside this country. And so that's going to mean that with him in charge, the brand is going to be focusing on not just telling stories that appeal to us, but stories that have worldwide appeal.
Huh. Yeah, and I mean that sounds great, right? Like, especially when you talk about what Marvel has seemed to have been trying to do over the last few years, right? Of like introducing a diverse group of new characters that speak to new kinds of comic book fans, having somebody who has like boots on the ground experience of trying to get these books to appeal to people who aren't American. That sounds great. I mean,
yeah, you come in providing a different kind of context and perspective, and that just enriches things, and like to something that we always quote G. Willow Wilson's, like, it just makes things authentic.
Yeah, man. And I mean, I'm sure he's learned things from those markets too, just from how their comics culture works. And like, maybe there's things he can apply to the way that Marvel does things that'll be different than the rest of the US market and actually make them stand out or something like that. You know, and like, maybe we're fucking giving him more credit than he deserves, but I don't know. Like, I don't think any of that's unheard of when you have somebody in that high of a position. You know, like, he really does have the power to affect meaningful change about how they publish books. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I've been a fan of his for many years, so we'll see how it goes. And good luck.
I absolutely wish him the best of luck for sure.
I'm looking forward to, you know, the announcements about, you know, what's going to happen under his eye. So
it'll probably be a while before we really know what that's going to look like, unfortunately.
Correct.
But it is what it is.
We'll probably get the announcements fairly soon, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just takes a big ship like Marvel a long time to turn, you know?
Yeah.
So, last week we talked about Mark Millar's first comic under Netflix, The Magic Order. This week, he's made an announcement about another book that he's working on outside of Netflix, which is a sort of relaunch of KickAss. So this is a new story set within, I suppose, the KickAss universe, but with a different main character that is actually very interesting. The main character is a black mother, which is obviously not anything like the prior KickAss. So her name is Patience Lee. She's a military veteran, and she has young children. The reason why this isn't taking place in the Netflix sort of world, why this is outside of Netflix, is because KickAss falls under a pre-existing deal, as does Kingsman, that was arranged with Matthew Vaughn. So it's totally separate. What do you guys think? Are you excited about this?
Excited is not the right word. I would say I'm cautiously optimistic about it. I talked a little bit about it with friend of the show, Matt Murphy from the Long Box, and, you know, we were both fans of KickAss, especially as, you know, when we were younger, but the sequel series really did not speak to me in the same way that the original one did. I think, something I said to him during our conversation was that I like Mark Millar, but I think he does have a tendency sometimes to be graphic for the sake of being graphic. You know, he does things that are shocking to shock you. And I feel like KickAss kind of fell into that sometimes. And I think it worked in the first series because it was novel. And I feel like it became a war of escalation with himself. And some of the things that happen in KickAss 2, and some of the like subsequent series, like, really turned me off to what was going on in that universe. So I'm willing to give this a shot, but I wouldn't say I'm excited for it anymore. Like, the first KickAss will always hold a place in my heart, but I'm kind of done with that universe based on his like more recent offerings in it.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely hear that. One thing that does kind of inspire me to be excited is that it's the following quote. The original 4 volumes, this is coming from Mark Millar, the original 4 volumes of KickAss, the Dave Lazowski story, got tied up a couple of years ago and is a brand new character. I'd always wanted to do what Doctor Who or The Flash does and create a legacy character. KickAss is being designed for that. The idea is that he inspires other people to do what he did, just putting on a costume and cleaning up their neighborhood, and that's what happens here. I wanted to shake up the setting a little and shifted the whole thing to New Mexico. The lead is a woman this time, a mother in her early 30s with 2 young kids. She's also a military vet who came home to find her life in a completely different setting from the way it was when she went to Afghanistan. So the actual dynamic of the book is really different, but at the same time, the flavor is identical. The reason why that inspires me is because the original KickAss hero was super basic, right? And this time around, this is an individual, a woman who has a life already. You know, she's got baggage, she has children, she's lived. That's going to be very different than what Dave brought to the table. And I think that that's the kind of hero that I really want to read about. Genuinely.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you say it that way, it's hard to argue. I hope it comes out in a way that speaks to what is interesting about that and doesn't have some of the Millarisms that do tend to turn me off, because I agree with you. I really do. I love the idea of reading a story about a superhero who's a 30-year-old woman who has 2 children, and then the ex-military aspect just adds another layer to her character. Like, there's a lot you can do there that is different and fresh, and not just from KickAss, but from most superheroes.
Right. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I've never been a huge KickAss fan. Again, sort of like Pete said, just the hyper violence of the whole thing. It's not something I generally lean into. I'm gonna say what I feel for the posterity of saying it. I don't like that I feel this way, and I after hearing the way you sold it, based on Millar's pitch and everything, that it does feel, I do feel a little differently now, but like the initial announcement of this for me, it felt like the anti-diversity. It felt like what the anti-diversity Marvel fanboys complain about. It's a diversity book for diversity's sake. Who gives a shit? He's just doing it. It's just a cash grab. I don't feel that way after hearing that. But for me, like, the initial announcement didn't sit right. And I don't, and I think that may just be based on the previous, my opinion and sort of the what I know about the previous KickAss books. It just didn't sit right. Does any of that make sense?
It does. I think it's a little unfair to Millar, because I think, despite my critique of the way I think he sometimes handles violent situations like that, I do think he does a pretty good job of writing about, like, things that are not his struggle, but that are struggles earnestly. Like, I don't remember the name of that book, but that book he did about the kids from Detroit after his trip to Detroit, and like, he seems very, he seems like he likes to try to tell the stories of people that are different from him and try to, like, empathize with them through that writing. And I don't feel like this feels out of character for him as a writer. It's just a matter of, like, for me, how good is the execution going to be? Is it going to feel authentic to that character, or is it going to be Mark Millar wanting to feel authentic to that character?
Yeah, and it remains to be seen. And the book will be out this upcoming year, so we don't have to wait too long to check it out for ourselves.
Could be good.
Indeed. So, we finally have an update on Batfleck Watch. Obviously, Justice League is out, and of course, Ben Affleck has been doing a ton of press and talking about this film, but also the upcoming Batman movie. Ben Affleck has flip-flopped a lot in terms of where he stands on whether he wants to, continue to be Batman, or what he's looking to do. So the following is a quote from him when asked if he would do the Batman movie. So he said, "It's something I'm contemplating. You don't do it forever, so I want to find a graceful and cool way to segue out of it."
That is the least graceful and cool way to say that ever.
Yeah.
That just sounds so bad. Like, that's, and like, I don't mean to like pick apart what he's saying. Like, I know he's a public person and like, that's not my intent, but I'm just saying like, saying that you want something to be graceful and cool is like so antithetical to what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, he was really caught later in that interview when the interviewer asked him, "So Ben, do you bleed?" "Oh, well, you will." He didn't know what to say.
This is in stark contrast to what he said at San Diego Comic-Con, where he expressed, "Let me be clear. Batman is the coolest effing part in any universe. I am so thrilled to do it. It is effing amazing." There was more to that, but that's the gist of what he said. And, he seemed super excited. He mentioned that he would be a gorilla on the ground for Matt Reeves, who is directing the Batman. And now it seems like he's kind of wishy-washy. His brother recently said about a month ago that that Ben would not be playing Batman in the Batman film. That was walked back, but that's what his brother had to say. His brother knows more about this situation than anybody else does, I would imagine. So it's a weird situation. It's very strange. Now, I do want to add to that obviously we've known about this and the wishy-washiness of this for a long time, but coming out last week was that Matt Reeves actually had an actor in mind to play Batman in his movie if Ben Affleck decided not to do it. And it turns out, if the rumors are true, and this is according to We Got This Covered, Reeves wants Jake Gyllenhaal to play Batman.
Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yep. Great job, Phil.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Thanks. So what do you guys think about that?
In all seriousness, Jake Gyllenhaal is actually one of my favorite actors in Hollywood right now. There was a movie by Denis Villeneuve that came out in 2013 called Enemy that was really good. It was actually it was sensational. And of course, movies like Nightcrawler. I think Jake Gyllenhaal could be a very, very good Batman. That said, I don't actually want Ben Affleck to leave. I actually think he's a really good Bruce Wayne, a really good Batman. But if we're going to fantasy cast another Batman, I'm okay with Jake Gyllenhaal, and I've actually wanted him to do some kind of superhero movie for like 4 or 5 years. So, I mean, could be good.
Yeah, I echo all Phil's sentiments for sure. Especially in Justice League, I really do like Ben Affleck's Batman, but Jake Gyllenhaal's a fantastic actor, so I mean, if we do need to replace him, that's a fine choice.
Boy, I felt the opposite. No, that's not necessarily true. Having not seen Batman versus Superman, the thought of Ben Affleck as Batman isn't terrible to me. I don't hate that idea. But I think after seeing Justice League and seeing the way Batman was treated, and we'll get into it, obviously, my thoughts on that, I don't think there's a lot for Batman to do. And I feel like Affleck was probably pretty let down by that. And I think especially in the final product, I think that's probably why this is coming out now. Is I bet they were waiting to see like the critical response to Batman in the film and the film itself. And I don't blame them. And I don't blame him for wanting to make his exit after this.
It's hard to argue with that.
What do you think of Jake Gyllenhaal, though?
Yeah, I think that's a fine move. He and Ben Affleck, I think, are sort of the same like generation of actor, 90s romantic comedy sort of actor.
I don't know about that, dude.
Late 90s, yeah.
Like,
and listen, I'm not saying that as a bad thing at all.
I know, but
I think that's sort of where they both kind of started to come up and got like their leading man roles, you know. Brokeback Mountain, as much of it, you know, as a meme as that movie became, it's really good. And like, it's, you know, it proves that, you know, Gyllenhaal's got the metal to, you know, be a good and like complicated actor. I think he would be great. I think what I'm saying is he would be a good follow-up to Ben Affleck.
All right.
Yeah.
I agree. And I could definitely get behind Jake Gyllenhaal. I see him as someone who's dynamic, and I'd be interested in what he would bring to this character. I
think he'd be a good like reset too. Right. Like, whereas Ben Affleck is, you know, playing the older, a little bit more grizzled Bruce Wayne. I think Jake Gyllenhaal has the ability to play someone who's just like a little younger to match Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, so like Phil and I were talking about this coming out of the movie. Do you think that they would like kill off Bruce Wayne, or would they just have him be like a younger Bruce Wayne through like Flashpoint or some bullshit?
I would lean toward Flashpoint. Sort of like, you know, we've talked about this a couple of times with the Marvel phase shift and like the ending of like Chris Evans' contract. Like, you know, after Thanos and the glove and everything, they just kind of shift actors, and, you know, it's like, oh, these are the Avengers, and they're a whole new cast, and we can keep going. I think like that's probably what they'll do.
I don't like making hard line statements like this, but I think, at least from where I'm sitting right now, if they killed Bruce, I would stop going to see movies with Batman in them until he was back. I have no interest in that at all.
Dude, if he was Dick Bats, I'd be all in.
I would have trouble with that just based on the fact that we haven't seen Dick Grayson in these films yet.
I don't give a shit. I'm in for Dick Bats.
I hear you. But I wouldn't want that to come out of nowhere.
Yeah, my thought was, and I don't think this will actually happen, but I was like, yeah, I mean, like, maybe they could have Dick Grayson take over as Batman, and that's like Jake Gyllenhaal or whatever. And then the Nightwing movie that they were talking about is like a story of him as like a young person as Nightwing or whatever, and that's how we get our backstory with him. I'm not saying I want that, but I could see them pulling something like that.
We'll see. Now that Justice League is out, it'll be interesting to hear how their plans change, because a lot of everything that they're wanting to do hinged on Justice League's success or lack thereof. So we'll see. Now, this next news story, I want to preface by saying I do not want to spend a lot of time talking about this. We already talked about it last week, but I just wanted to include it to follow up because it's important. So last week, BuzzFeed released their article about Eddie Berganza and all the terrible stuff that he did while he was at DC, and going to conventions and groping women, you know, kissing them when they didn't want to, all the horrible stories that you can read in the BuzzFeed article. So the reaction obviously was swift by fans. And DC followed up quickly with a suspension pending a thorough review, a prompt and careful review. And then as of just a few days ago, as of Monday, actually, they fired him. So he's no longer with the company. He's no longer with DC. I'll read their statement. Warner Brothers and DC Entertainment have terminated the employment of DC Comics Group editor Eddie Berganza. We are committed to eradicating harassment and ensuring that all employees, as well as our freelance community, are aware of our policies, are comfortable reporting any concerns, and feel supported by our company. So that's what they had to say about it. Quick reacts only, please.
See you, nerd.
Yeah, I mean, I missed last week's show, so I didn't really get to weigh in on this whole issue, but I mean, obviously this is disgusting and upsetting to hear. And, I'm just glad that justice was served, at least at some capacity, right? He doesn't have his job anymore. And hopefully the person that replaces him will be, somebody we can trust won't do this kind of thing. And, it's unfortunate that it went on for as long as it did, but my all I can hope that the takeaway from all of these situations is that like this won't happen as much moving forward, and ideally it won't happen anymore at all.
Yeah, and I guess now like hopefully we'll get to see a woman in the Superman room.
Absolutely.
I don't know. Too little, too late. I appreciate that, he's fired and they finally did the right thing. But it's been 15, 20 years. Like, fuck that. Like,
yeah, it's only because there's pressure now, and that sucks.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, we did the thing you asked for. You can go see Justice League now. Come on.
You're right, dude.
Like
100% right.
Like I appreciate it, but oh good, you're finally being decent human beings.
Yeah, right. I'm not gonna pat him on the back for it.
Yeah.
10-4, good buddy.
Agreed. So, Justice League is out, and
what?
Yeah, apparently.
Shit.
I love that cartoon.
So Joss Whedon has had an interesting level of involvement with this film because after a tragedy in Zack Snyder's family, Joss Whedon stepped in to do the reshoots for the movie. Reshoots are a natural part of any film, and what's unnatural is that another director came in and did them, but due to the circumstances, it worked out. Now, of course, that puts a microscope on Joss Whedon's opinions about the movie. And he's gotten into some pretty hot water over some tweets that he actually liked. So, on Twitter, Joanna Robinson wrote, Justice League Steppenwolf is the worst comic book movie villain of all time, and not even Malekith the Accursed comes close. Someone later compared Steppenwolf to Tim Curry in Legend, to which Robinson wrote, me too, and that only made it worse because Tim Curry is the business legend. So that's that individual's opinion. However, Joss Whedon, who has done no press for this film at all and has had very little to say about it, actually liked the tweets. And that really pissed off a lot of people. So someone on Twitter wrote, so Joss Whedon ruined Justice League with his sexualization of the characters and bad CGI, but he has the nerve and audacity to come on Twitter and trash the movie. It's time for the DCEU fans to run him off Twitter like the MCU fans once did. That is a crazy reaction. And that's just one of many. But
Yeah.
That is absolutely wild. So let me take the opportunity to clear up a few things for anybody who's confused about what Joss Whedon actually did on this film.
Time for Sean Soapbox.
Joss Whedon's defense attorney.
Pause. Number one, Joss Whedon had nothing to do with the way that the Amazons looked in the movie. A lot of people are mad because their costumes were different than the ones in Wonder Woman. Get over it. That was Zack Snyder's decision. A lot of the women who were the Amazons in the movie had no problems. You can do research for yourself if you are confused about that. Number two, Joss Whedon had nothing to do with the bad CGI. If you think Steppenwolf looked like crap, you should blame everybody who was a part of that production. Joss Whedon came in after the fact and had to work with what was there. He didn't ruin the movie. Everyone should know now, as reports have come out, that Joss Whedon did reshoots, which had to be done. The movie is Zack Snyder's movie. Joss Whedon is not credited as a director. He has a writer's credit. You could dislike some of the stuff that he may have written, but would love for you to point out to me the scenes that Joss Whedon actually wrote. If you know those scenes, then great. If you didn't like them, that's unfortunate. But if you're going to tell me that the scenes that he wrote were worse than some of the dialogue that was included in this movie, including the opening scene with Batman and a random robber, if you think that what Joss Whedon wrote was worse than that, then we should really have a conversation. I'm done now. I'm getting off my soapbox.
And that was Sean's Soapbox, brought to you by Marco's Chewable Enemas.
Hey, bringing it back.
No, I mean, like, sincerely, I agree with all your sentiments, man. Absolutely, 100%.
I really thought you were going to say, no, sincerely, I use them.
Sincerely, I chew those enemas.
It's just ridiculous. He can like a tweet. He didn't come up with Steppenwolf. He came up with Loki. In a very similar movie, Loki was 100% a better villain than Steppenwolf. So why wouldn't he agree with that tweet?
It's like, he probably shouldn't have liked the tweet just because he should have known something like this was going to happen. But it's also just like, the fact that he would like a tweet and people are just like, oh, he ruined the movie. Let's fucking run him off Twitter. It's like, all right, like, it's fucking slow your roll, buddy.
People are psychos. Fucking
keyboard warriors, man.
Yep.
Get a podcast and bitch about his movies like a normal person.
That's right. So, as we always do with these movie releases, we always look at Rotten Tomatoes to get a sense of where you guys are at and where critics are at in terms of their enjoyment of these movies. So, what I want you guys to do is I want you to guess the critics score and the audience score for Justice League.
All right. The critic score is like 54%. The fan score, 88.
I say critic 52 and fans 77.
I'm going to go critics 45 to hedge my bets. And audience, I'm going to say is like 84, 86.
Okay, Cale.
I'm going to go harsher. I think the critics are closer to 35, 36.
Ooh.
Fans are probably 65, 70.
Okay, so Pete is absolutely the closest to the actual scores. So the critic score is actually 40%.
Wow.
And the audience score is 86%.
Wow. All right.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, people are loving this movie, apparently.
I saw you smirk when I said 84 or 86, and I was like, I must have gotten close with that one.
Yeah. That was pretty on the money. So critics hate it. Fans like it. And you're going to find out right now what we think about Justice League. So as always, we're going to start off with our spoiler-free section. If you haven't seen the movie, we won't spoil anything for you guys. You can listen to us talk about what we thought about the cast, the characters, some of our problems that are, general, and give a score to the movie. And then, of course, after that, we'll jump into the spoiler section. So if you haven't seen it and you care about spoilers, you're going to want to jump off. But until that point, ride with us. So, Justice League, open the floor. What do you guys think? Pete, you want to start us off?
I'll start with an anecdote.
Go ahead.
So I went into the movie. I could only find a ticket for like the last showing at the Union Square Theater, the Regal.
So you spent some bucks
in New York City. For those who don't know,
yeah. So before that, I had to kill time. Right, I don't want to stay in the office. Couldn't go all the way back home and then come back. So I went to a bar with my girlfriend. Got hammered. Then went into the movie. And then for those of you who would like to see the results of that, you can go check out Twitter, because I was trying to live tweet it and then I fell asleep for a sec and then I just kept watching the movie.
I hate that you live tweeted a movie in a movie theater on our account. It's just like, so you're just live documenting you being a jackass.
Yep.
That jackass who has his phone out. I would have screamed at you in public.
No, I had my jacket over me, so I was like in my little thing.
No,
like
no,
this.
No.
Not better.
I cannot condone any of this.
I cannot condone any part of this.
I cannot sanction your buffoonery.
I was gonna delete the tweets, but I wanted to leave them up so that we could razz you about them and people could go look.
No, that's why. Open floor. Go look at that, guys.
And if you see it, please crucify him.
As I was, that's Mr. Marco Animoto on Twitter.
Thank you.
As I was dealing with the development of all of this, I was trying to figure out how to negate it. And I was trying to figure out, can you turn off your own Twitter feed? Like, if I log into the comics files, can I just turn it off for a minute? Like,
can I just block Marco's access to it for like the next 30 minutes?
Honestly, the most succinct way of summarizing it is how Sean described it in our own personal chat. It read like the ravings of an insane person.
It was weird.
so
overall,
hey, Marco,
yeah,
don't tweet in movie theaters. It's weird. It's weird that I have to tell you that on our podcast.
All right, Justice League. So I was really impressed by the animation. I really like Superman and Hawkgirl and the Martian Manhunter.
All right, enough from you. Marco, do you want to give us your thoughts since you were speaking anyway?
So I think that overall, for me, things seemed muddled. And that's not just because I fell asleep for a portion of it. like usually if you do that, you can follow the story. I couldn't. And my girlfriend also fell asleep during parts. I was saying Cale this before we started, but on the Uber ride home, we're trying to piece together the parts that we each were awake for and figure it out. But no spoilers, but there didn't seem to be a plot, or it was super thin. And
yeah, it's hard to give spoilers when you don't know what you're watching.
Yeah, so it's other than that, some of the cinematography was it was okay. I didn't like that even for some of the simpler shots, they still use CGI on some of the characters. I felt like that could have been avoided with the actual actors there and just put his green screen in there. Some of those were I felt wasted shots. And then other than that, I give it it wasn't terrible. Give it a 6, 5.
Oof! Wow. All right.
What's up, Cale?
To kind of follow Marco's point, I saw it before everybody else because I live in New Zealand, and apparently that's how things work here.
Well, you live in the future.
Yeah. I'm roughly a day and a half ahead, or 3/4 of a day ahead. So I went and saw it. For you guys, I guess it was Wednesday. I didn't want to tell you how I felt about it, but Marco asked. And so what I said was, I legitimately don't remember any of it. Not because I was drunk or high or anything. I just for me, there was nothing to hold on to. The thing that stands out the most for me is the scene where they're standing around in the Bat warehouse and Aquaman has that weird scarf.
There's a lot of really legit scarves in this movie, actually.
I just
the scarf game in this movie is really strong, I will say.
Yeah, so for me, there's very little to latch onto. I think the plot was barely there. Because I've read the Jeff Johns, Jim Lee Justice League origin story, and I've saw the Justice League War cartoon, I knew what they were going for. But I mean, for me, it really felt like, they took out Green Lantern, they took out Shazam, they made Cyborg brood even more somehow. And they, again, continued to sexualize Wonder Woman. And, like, that sucked. That part sucked. Especially going from Wonder Woman.
How did they sexualize Wonder Woman?
There was a lot of gratuitous ass shots of Diana, which you did not get in the Wonder Woman film.
And not to get too graphic, I saw a butt flap.
Yeah, there's that scene where they shoot all of them getting off of that shuttle, and it's like you get this like kind of like upskirt shot of her, and like you see her ass, and I was kind of like, oh wow, like that never happened in Wonder Woman.
Or when Bruce Wayne and Barry come off the plane, it's like positioned just at her waist and looking up, so you're just staring at her ass the whole time.
And it's like you stare at all their asses, but it's like you see up her skirt, whereas like it's. For them, they're just in costumes.
Yeah, like the angles that they got on this, just raise it up like 6 inches.
The Long Box Boys said it best. Like, everyone in this movie wants to fuck Diana, and that sucks. I mean, like, it's just like, and coming off of Wonder Woman, that really sucked. Gal Gadot. Consistent for the character, really great characterization, but she really got shafted. I found that Henry Cavill had 3 good Superman scenes in the 15 minutes that he was in the movie.
What do you mean he's not in the movie?
More spoilers.
I mean, he's on the poster. I don't think
he's also in the. There's like stand up things in movie theaters with Superman in them. So
I'm just giving you shit. I'm fine with what you said. I just wanted to give you shit.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if you were trying to ref me out or. A lot of people like Barry Allen in this movie. I couldn't stand him. I hate to be this guy, but like Grant Gustin for me is the perfect Barry Allen, and Ezra Miller he was fine for what he was given. I think he seems like a really good guy, good actor. But this portrayal of Barry Allen just made him just an annoying piece of shit. Like, I was not here for it. Overall, Steppenwolf, again, cardboard cutout. Like, there was nothing to him. Barely had motivation. No, I guess that's not true, but his motivation was cardboard thin. Overall, like, I give it 3.5.
Out of 10?
Like,
out of 10?
Out of 10.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to make sure.
No, out of 100.
out of 3, right?
And that's like, I can't even say I didn't like the movie. I legitimately left the movie theater going, well, I paid for parking, so I better get out. Like, that's it. My overall feelings aren't positive for sure, but they weren't negative.
Huh.
I was apathetic to this movie completely.
All right.
Yeah, I get that.
Phil go next.
So, I mean, the reality is this isn't a good movie. That's just what it is. I can't defend the movie at all because, I mean, it's not a good movie. That being said, however, I enjoyed it for the most part. It was better than I expected, I should say. I went in expecting a real piece of dog pile, and honestly, it was. Like, there was no plot. The villain was terrible. The CGI looked bad in a lot of scenes, but I surprisingly enjoyed the character interactions. I thought this was the best Superman we've seen in any movie in 30 fucking years, which is insane. I walked away and I was just pleasantly surprised. And I think it's because I expected the worst. Honestly, to give it a score, I'd probably, on a good day, it's a 6.5 out of 10. On a bad day, it's like a 5 out of 10.
Pete?
Yeah, I pretty closely echo Phil's sentiments. I remember, there was a lot of moments, like him and I saw it together. He's visiting me this weekend, and there was a lot of moments that I remember like groaning at, but there was a surprising amount of moments that I remember that definitely worked for both of us too. And I would say, like, for a score, I would say probably, again, a good day a 6.5, bad day a 6. I think the movie is definitely not good, but it's also not bad. It's like aggressively mediocre. And I think like it has moments where it flirts with goodness. There are character interactions that I think work well. Some of the comedy's good. And I thought, there's definitely a lot of problems I had with some of the CGI, but I think the like actual, fight choreography, some of that was not bad. I think the final act of the film is actually the strongest part about it, which is like weird because a lot of times I feel the opposite. If there's a really good superhero movie with lots of strong characterization and then a big dumb CGI fight at the end, it kind of ruins it. But considering this movie's really, really weak in terms of plot, the big dumb CGI fest where it's nothing but quips and punching is actually kind of a good time. So I think it's like, if you go in with low expectations, I think, and you want to see the Justice League on the big screen, fighting parademons, like, yeah, like there's something for you there. I think, like, I think the best way I can put it is it's a dumb popcorn comic turned into a dumb popcorn movie, and if you're down for that, you might have a good time with it.
What's frustrating is that there's a great movie somewhere in this mess.
Yeah, I think you could see that there's a way that this could have been a lot more satisfying. I will say, in terms of like the cast specifically, like I thought the Ezra Miller Flash like definitely worked for me and Phil. We got a kick out of that. I remember talking about coming out of it. I like Ben Affleck's Batman again here. I thought it was a lot better than in BVS. I'm a big fan of Gal Gadot's portrayal of Wonder Woman. I thought the Superman moments were really strong. I think Aquaman and Cyborg landed for me a little less. I think Aquaman had a few moments that were good, but he seemed a little underutilized in my mind. And Cyborg I thought was just flat as a character. I really didn't find much to connect with him there. And his story was kind of told in the background, but I don't feel like it really ever went anywhere meaningfully. And his connection to the plot isn't super well explained. And it was one of the many things that felt very sloppy and kind of shoehorned into a story that, I don't know.
It was a disservice for a character like Cyborg.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I think so. And I think that's kind of the problem with it, is that, like, to Cale's point, there isn't anything to hold on to, because the movie is made to make the movie, not because there was a reason to make the movie. But I think in spite of that, there are moments here to enjoy, I think.
Yeah.
So for me, I went into this movie only really caring about seeing the Justice League together. I just wanted to see these characters on screen at the same time. I already knew the villain was bad. I already knew there were a bunch of different problems, but I just wanted to see these characters. And on that level, it worked really, really well. I thought there was a great chemistry between this cast.
Yeah.
And these characters, and the writers really did a good job of establishing their relationships in a 2-hour movie that has to establish a lot of other things too. So now, yeah, there are some characters here who have legitimate friendships or legitimate bonds that I could see carrying over into future projects, that give me feelings of, like a comic book in a lot of ways. And they did a really good job of doing that in the constraints that they had. I would say that everything else about the movie doesn't work. Everything else is flawed and to some degree, whether it's just sort of flawed or really, really bad. But that being said, I still had a good time. I enjoyed it. I had fun. It was cool to see these characters together. I liked the soundtrack. Hearing these are not spoilers. Hearing the Batman 89 theme in the movie was so awesome. Hearing Superman's original theme was an incredible moment for me, and I really loved what they did on that front. Danny Elfman is a beast,
and John Williams with the Superman.
Yeah, but Danny Elfman scored this film, so all the actors I think did a really good job. The principal actors, the main cast, did a really good job. There wasn't any character that I disliked. I thought Batman was underutilized, but that was fine because he's Batman. We already know what the deal is. And then with Cyborg, you guys didn't like him. I liked him a lot. I liked him more than I've ever liked him before because he's very different than the rest of them, and that's what I liked. He's a different kind of character with different problems who sees himself not as a monster, but as something he can't even process. And what he's going through is interesting. I love the Flash. I thought the Flash was funny. Yes, they did make him into like a Peter Parker type character, which
Wally
is
West.
not. Sorry?
He's very Wally West.
Right. Which,
I don't even think he's Wally West. I think he's Bart Allen.
I at any rate, I was cool with that because I think the movie needed that, and Ezra Miller is very charming, and that worked for me on every level. So as for a score, I would say that this movie is a 6, and I wish that I felt better about it, but I'm also not. I didn't have a horrible time, but it is the flimsiest movie that I've ever paid to see in my life in terms of plot. There's nothing there at all.
Even though this movie is so fragile, it still feels like the franchise is inching toward the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I would agree with that.
So that's going to do it for our spoiler-free section.
Before we get into that, can I just say, Ray Fisher's Cyborg is Phil Lamar's voice.
Yeah,
personified.
what the hell?
Like, so Phil Lamar he's a renowned voice actor. He did Jon Stewart and Static Shock, to name just a couple of his superhero properties.
Yeah, Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack. He's notoriously got like a really good, like deep, authoritative voice. And there were a couple of moments in this film where Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, sounded just like Phil Lamar. To which I thought, man, they wasted Ray Fisher. He should have been Green Lantern.
So, all right. So let's jump into the spoiler section. Again, we're going to spoil everything. So if you care about that, now would be a great time to jump off. So what were the problems or things that you liked about the pacing, execution, plot, stuff like that?
The first act of the movie is fucking a slog. Like, there's just not much going on, and like there's so much just jumping around between a bunch of characters, two of which we don't even know, you know? And it's like it treats it like, I remember feeling the entire time that it's like, yeah, this really feels like it wants to be a sequel to 2 movies that haven't even, or 3 movies that haven't even come out. You know, and it's like, I know who Wonder Woman and Batman are, and they have baggage. Like, I can pick somewhere up with them, but like, I'm being introduced to these characters for the first time, and it's just like, it's a lot going on. And I don't feel like it does a particularly good job of showing us who they are in a way that's at all entertaining.
Yeah, if you compare it to the opening and introductions to the characters of Suicide Squad, at least Suicide Squad's opening was like semi-entertaining,
and it's short.
Like it was well, but there are 2 of them.
That's true.
but it was visually interesting, you know. This just felt like a lot of jumping around to stuff that didn't really make a lot of difference.
So the idea of recruiting characters is not something that is unusual in film. In fact, two of the greatest films in history of cinema, Seven Samurai and The Magnificent Seven, the original one, the whole plot is about recruiting people to save a town, right? And that's not an unusual thematic device. The thing with Justice League is they do such a sloppy job of that. And the reality is, I don't think you really need to do much to introduce these characters, just because you don't do that in those movies. I think the point is, like Sean, you go into the see this movie because you just want to see all the characters team up and be the Justice League. You could save the exposition for the solo Flash film, Cyborg, Aquaman, whatever. But the point is, you could do the bare minimum of introducing these characters and it'd be okay. But I felt like they tried to have their cake and eat it too. And as far as structurally speaking, I mean, it is what it is. The movie's a mess.
So if we're talking about the opening, I really vehemently disliked the first scene with Batman and the first scene with Wonder Woman was less bad, but that scene with Batman was absolutely horrible. So
he let the dude walk.
So first of all, yes, he let the dude walk. So when it starts, it's really cool because he's like swinging around. I like all that stuff. That's like Batman stuff. But then he like has him hanging over the edge of the building, and the guy's like, "What do you want from me?" Why would anyone ever say that, right? Like, why would he say, "What do you want from me?" Obviously, you are robbing. Batman is a superhero. He wants to stop you. You don't have to ask what he wants from you. It's apparent. And
he wants justice.
Right. And then Batman's answer is even more terrible because he's like, "Fear. I can smell it." That is so awful that I really was like, okay, wow, this movie's gonna be worse than I thought it is.
It's like, oh, here we fucking go.
And then the parademon happens to be hanging around and comes to attack them, which obviously they kind of explain later that the parademons are attracted to fear, or fear calls to them, or whatever. And that's why the parademon came, but why was it in the area? What an extreme coincidence that it happened to be in the area that Batman was doing this. Well, it was awful.
I think the reason Batman was hanging him off the cliff is because he knew the parademon was there and was trying to attract it. And that's what the whole fear thing was.
Are you saying that legitimately?
Yeah, I think that's legitimately what they're trying to do.
How would Batman know that would work?
He's Batman.
Because the whole time he was like exploring parademons and trying to attract them and like what their weaknesses was. My impression was he was trying to catch a parademon.
How did he know that they existed?
And also,
they've been popping up for a while.
Yeah.
And also, what was his plan to get it before he came across this robber?
I think that was the plan, was to use the robber as a guinea pig.
Yeah.
That's
right. So, like, his plan was just, what time is it? Oh, 9 o'clock? Yeah, somebody's robbing something now.
I mean, yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying I think that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
But isn't there always someone robbing something in Gotham? Like, come on.
I'm not defending it. It's sloppy and it's messy, but I think that was the point.
The fact that there was somebody robbing something in Gotham is not a problem. The problem is that this worked. So why, like, the parademon was just floating around Gotham, like, hey, I'm looking for somebody who's scared, and then this happens to work out for Batman. You could go, like, it's just whatever. I don't want to belabor that point too much, but it was very silly.
You're right.
And then after that, he gets into a whole dialogue with this thief, who all of a sudden has very philosophical things to say about what's happening, and is it because he's gone? And the he, of course, playing the pronoun game, the he is Superman. Is it because he's gone? What do they want? Is it an alien attack? All this stuff. Like, who are you? Batman should have punched his lights out, brought him to jail, and moved on. Why are you talking to this person? That was so stupid.
Also, like, why would
he just fucking leaves?
And also, why would the criminal go up to talk to Batman about what happened? As soon as Batman stops hanging you off a building, get the fuck out of there.
Right.
Excuse me, Mr.
Out.
Batman, I'd like to wax philosophically with you for a second here.
Yeah, it's like, please, I would take the money that I was trying to steal and climb off the fucking building while he fights a demon or whatever.
Right. And then I felt similarly about the Wonder Woman scene. It wasn't as bad, but it just felt like a leftover scene from the Wonder Woman movie, as opposed to having really anything to do with this movie and the story that they were trying to tell. And I also don't think Wonder Woman really needed to be reestablished. We already get what she is and who she is. That's time with both scenes. Well, the Batman scene, I understand you gotta establish the parademons, whatever, but you could have used that time to spend more time with the characters we don't know as well.
Actually, hold on. I sort of have an issue with this scene and the way they portray her later. So she later on tells Cyborg that she disappeared for 100 years, and then like basically insinuates that it was because she lost Steve Trevor. And then after that, Bruce Wayne insinuates the same thing. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
So what they were saying was that, in Batman Superman, it's established that she had been gone for 100 years. This movie retcons that. She was out of the public eye for 100 years. She wasn't interacting on a social level with humans or anything like that. But she was still doing Wonder Woman stuff as Wonder Woman.
Okay, yeah, see, that's my gripe, because what I got from this movie, having not seen BVS, but saw Wonder Woman, at the end of Wonder Woman, it looks like she's jumping off the building because she saw the Wonder Woman signal and she's got to go Wonder Woman. The opening scene with Wonder Woman has her, stopping a bank robbery, blah, blah, blah. But then every other scene, they make it sound like she just disappeared because she was upset that Steve Trevor died.
They meant until the events of BVS. Like, she's been back in the public eye now, but when Batman made that insinuation, he was saying, like, where were you all that time? Like, you're talking about, he, basically is trying to, get a rise out of her, and push her.
Right, but she also confirmed that in her conversation with Cyborg.
Yes, but again, so she wasn't a public figure. She was, doing stuff like, World War II's happening or whatever, I'm gonna or World War or the Cold War, I'm gonna be subversively helping to stop evil. I'm not gonna come out and say, I'm Wonder Woman, I'm the best, I'm gonna save you guys. We see her taking pictures or whatever, talking to people in her costume and stuff like that. In this movie, she wasn't doing those things back then. Until Batman Superman, she sees a need to sort of reveal herself publicly. That's what they're talking about.
Boy, yeah, I didn't get that at all.
But again, it's a retcon. So that's part of why it's a little weird, is because Batman Superman establishes something different than what we just said. So in terms of the pacing, did you feel like the movie was paced well?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Yeah, not really.
Again, the beginning really sucks. I remember my feelings about the movie were sitting in it, right? In the opening few scenes, most of my reactions were turning and looking at Phil and being and just heavy sighs or laughing at things that weren't supposed to be funny. Middle way through the movie, I was how do I fucking feel about this? Is this what, is this leaving any impression on me? And then at the end, I was this is fun. So it's the last 20 minutes or whatever are pretty solid, and everything else is not great.
Yeah, the middle to me felt like it lost the plot a little bit with the Steppenwolf stuff, because
it gets to be about bringing the band together, and it's
bringing the band together and bringing Superman back to life.
Right.
If they made the movie about that, I could have got behind that.
Let's talk about that, because I felt like that was the most random thing that could have happened, especially considering that Batman Superman establishes visually, or at least gives you the impression that he's not dead. That
he's not. Would you say he's not super dead?
Right, I almost said that actually. That something's going on, right? So why did they need to use the mother box to bring him back? That was super weird. And then when he reses, it's like, okay, are you Bizarro? Like, what are you now? Aquaman's like, oh, you lose something when you come back. Okay, so he lost it, then he found it again when he spoke to Lois Lane. Like, that's not stupid, I guess. It's not like I get that, but it's just like, come on, man.
It's just the execution of it is so fucking sloppy.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like there's no explanation for why anything is fucking happening. It's like, we need to do this because it's the only thing, and if he's back, it's like, it's just a bunch of shit just keeps happening, and then there's resolution.
So the thing that's interesting about that scene is, in my head, wanting to bring Superman back, who they do say isn't dead. Like, there is a throwaway line there, but the thing is, you would want to feel like you're backed into a corner, and you absolutely need to bring Superman back because there's no other way. And to me, the 5 Justice Leaguers at that point, I don't feel like they're backed into a corner. Like, yeah, there are global stakes on the line, but it doesn't feel like they are so desperate because they've been outmatched and outwitted or defeated by Steppenwolf that's like, all right, well, this is our last ditch solution. They barely have a confrontation with Steppenwolf, and instead of like trying to take him on as they are, they're like, you know what, fuck it, we need Superman. I just fucking know it. When honestly, I think if the 5 of them just fought Steppenwolf, it would have been a slog and a hard fight, but I think they probably still would have won.
Yeah, right. And I feel like they try to play up Batman's guilt into the reason of why he really wants to bring Superman back, of like, I mostly just feel responsible for the fact that he's dead, and like, and also the whole thing of like, he's a symbol and we need him and like whatever. And it's like, again, like, it feels like there's like 3 explanations for why we're bringing Superman back to life, but it's also just, I don't know.
And you said, it's an interesting thought here. It's that if Superman was the embodiment and representation of hope, and there's no hope in this world, thematically, it would have been great for the Justice League to rise up to Superman's example and to create hope in the world, in the fact that the Justice League exists. But instead it's like, nah, man, we need Superman because he's literally hope.
So this is anecdotal, but after the movie, my girlfriend, who also saw Batman and Superman, did not understand why Batman felt guilty. And I had to explain to her that it made no sense because
hey, Rebecca, I don't know either.
Yeah, like, Batman, okay, so Batman didn't kill Superman. Yes, the kryptonite spear was his instrument, but Superman actually used that to kill Doomsday. So it actually negates the value of Superman's sacrifice in that movie, that Batman would feel guilty. If anything, if I were Superman and I resurrected from the dead, I'd be like, man, sorry, Batman, I was really dumb. I should have given this spear to Wonder Woman and let her handle it instead of me trying to be the hero and killing myself, because that's what he did, by using a spear that had kryptonite on it, weakening him so that Doomsday could kill him. Batman didn't do anything wrong. So they're creating this guilt that Batman all of a sudden feels, which is inappropriate, because Doomsday was going to happen no matter what, Superman was going to fight him no matter what, and he was going to die no matter what. That's how it had to happen. So Batman's guilt is silly. Also, on the subject of the resurrection, I think Phil is 1000% correct. There's no moment where they're kind of like, or maybe there wasn't, I forgot, but there's no moment where they're like, man, shouldn't we just let him rest in peace? Like, it feels like they kind of hem and haw a little bit.
Wonder Woman does do that. Wonder Woman's just kind of like, no, like, maybe he, like, she, I think, says, like, maybe he's like,
Aquaman too.
Oh yeah, Aquaman says don't do it, but he's more like afraid.
Yeah.
Like Wonder Woman straight up says like maybe he's at peace. And like,
right.
Yeah, that was when Batman made the shitty Steve Trevor joke that basically reduced Wonder Woman's character to a widow. Like,
I just felt like, because other examples of a resurrection like this, there's always that sort of feeling of like, we're robbing this person of peace, and that's heavily utilized. And I felt like they didn't really go there in a way that I would have liked. Wonder Woman mentions it, I guess. There's some hemming and hawing, but it felt like a decision that was not even required. And then because of that, the stakes and the drama wasn't as high as it could have been. Batman didn't have a great enough reason to be like, let's absolutely do this.
Batman had a throwaway line where he was like, he'll get over it. In regard to, won't Superman be pissed that you woke him up?
I have to say, Batman had a couple really good one-liners like that, though. Like, that was, I thought, pretty great. Like, it's like, oh, like, don't you feel kind of bad about what we're doing? It's like, yeah, but like, fuck it. It's like, oh, okay, fine. Like,
right. And
like,
then,
if they'd managed to pull off this resurrection in the middle of like the big Steppenwolf fight, it would have worked a lot better.
Yeah. Like, just from a stakes, like, it was very clear in this movie that Steppenwolf was not a threat to Superman. As soon as Superman showed up, he fucked shit up. And I was completely fine with that because it's like, yay, Superman. This is fucking Steppenwolf. But
great. This movie can finally end.
But you're right. If Superman came back during the fight, it would have worked better in a plot sort of way.
But in a dramatic sense, yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to bring up the scene where Superman does come back to life, and he's confused because he's not really of sound of mind because he's just been resurrected. It's kind of like the Lazarus pit when like Ra's al Ghul comes out or whatever. You're just kind of mindless for briefly. I love when all of them are fighting Superman all at once, and the Flash is running, and Superman just turns his head in slow motion.
that fucking reaction.
And the Flash is like, oh shit!
That was so fucking funny.
yeah.
I just wanted to comment. That was a great little scene.
That was the only moment I like thought one of the Flash's jokes landed.
Oh, I really liked the Flash on this. I really did.
So I wanted to talk about, and we should probably speed it up just a little bit, but I wanted to talk about the team dynamics. I felt like with the Justice League, there were some really interesting and fun dynamics between characters. I'll just throw out a couple of examples of the ones that I liked. I really liked the relationship between Flash and Wonder Woman. I liked the scenes that they had together. Flash and Cyborg. By the end of the movie, they're kind of like friends.
They got the fist
We
pound.
get to see them grave digging together, which was weird.
That was such a funny scene too. Like, I don't know, just their like play of him being this like awkward, jokey guy, and Cyborg just is like still very like kind of.
I'm Robot Man.
Yeah, like he's like, I'm definitely like, I'm in this weird between human and computer space, and he's just like, no, it's all right, that's cool. We're not there yet, man. That's okay.
And I thought that they did a really good job. So I felt very contrary to you guys. Whereas you guys saw sexual tension between characters, I saw Wonder Woman as the caretaker of the group, and she is that in the comics as well. She's very sort of. She looks over them and makes sure that everybody's good. And they established that well here, I thought. I liked her and Batman as kind of like, go ahead, Cale. I see you disagree.
They established that well for Wonder Woman. I don't think they established that for the other characters.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't get that from Cyborg and Superman with Wonder Woman, but Flash and Batman and Aquaman with Wonder Woman, for sure.
Like from a male gaze perspective.
Yeah, well, there's that scene where Aquaman is tied up by the rope and he's like, "Oh, you're hot and beautiful" or whatever. And then there's the scene where Flash is like, "Oh, she's so attractive," and he like falls on top of her for a split second.
Yeah.
It was like awkward
all the
about it.
hinted romantic subtext between Batman and Wonder Woman. Like, she was definitely treated as like she's the attractive woman on the team.
Okay, all right, but she is. So Aquaman saying that when he has the lasso on is not weird. Like, yeah, she is hot. He's gonna say that.
Yeah, I gotta agree with Sean on this one. Like, I agree that I think the Flash scene was needless. That to me is needless sexualization of Wonder Woman. I think like the characters admiring her is not like, I don't think that has to be sexualizing her. I don't think that she needs to have romantic tension with every character, and I think the stuff between like her and Batman is like unnecessary. But like, I agree. I don't feel like there's that vibe with her and Superman at all, and not Cyborg either for that matter. But the Flash stuff, I feel like it totally makes sense with the character, the way he's portrayed, right? Like Sean made a comparison between him and Peter Parker, and I feel like him being the young kid, like wouldn't you in that scenario look up to Diana and like be enamored with her because she's A, fucking beautiful, and B, this incredibly powerful person, you know, like, and not just like as a fucking you know, a goddess, but also like as a leader in these scenarios too. Like, I don't know, I buy that.
And like yes,
I don't tell my coworker or boss that she's hot.
The only person who does that is Aquaman, and it's literally only with the rope scene though. And like,
yeah, he has the lasso on him.
Yeah, and like
But,
that's
like,
the whole point of that.
In regards to the
can't help it.
subtext.
And to a degree, I think you're right about when Barry and Diana first meet. I think I do think, yeah, that first meeting would absolutely be, he would be awestruck and tongue tied, blah blah blah. But and I'm not even making this, you know, the situation where he falls on her. It's not a fault of the Flash. It's a fault of the movie.
Yeah, because I don't think that like him pushing her out of the way didn't need to be played for sexual tension. And that to me is an example of what you're talking about. I don't think that the Aquaman scene is an example of that. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know.
But
yes
if
and
he's got the lasso on, what's he gonna say?
I sleep with fish.
Like, why did it have to go there?
Because he was just telling his truth at that moment, and that was part of his truth. If he's looking at her,
but why was that his truth? Looking at her,
because it is.
Why didn't he say that about Bruce Wayne? Why didn't he say that about
Bruce Wayne?
How do you know?
Because that's what they showed us in the movie, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's because
Like,
Aquaman's a straight man in this. Like, you know,
I guess where Cale and I are coming from is just like that for us wasn't necessary, and even though the character would say something like that, like you don't have to write that for that character with that interaction in that scenario. You could write something else, and that's okay. But for the context of the character, like writing that, sure, it makes sense, but we're coming from we can disagree on the perspective of whether or not it's like necessary.
Yeah, I hear that.
I for me, it's the same move as Flash falling on Wonder Woman. Like, it's a fault of the movie that it didn't need to be there to make that moment funny.
So I sympathize and agree with that. But you know what I really liked, since I don't want to shit on everything, is the Flash and Superman scenes. All of them. Like where they save the pedestrians.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
oh my god,
and yeah,
yeah, where he just pushes the car and then he's like, he goes to turn around and Superman's pulling an entire fucking Billy. He's just like, like, damn it.
That was fantastic. Or the
I
mid-credits
really
scene
loved him here.
where they're going to race.
that dynamic is like, it's one of the 3 good Superman scenes. Like, you know, the race, and then the moment we get to see him laugh with Cyborg.
Well, that was awesome.
Man, that's Superman.
It's
Dude,
Superman.
Like, what's hard about that?
I fucking love that, where it's like he pulls it apart and he's like, I think we can handle it. He's like, good, I like living. And then after the impact, he's just like, never mind, I wish I was dead. Like,
Yep.
And
that was just...
he makes Cyborg laugh, the guy who's like very broody. That's Superman.
That moment with Superman was so like crazy for me to hear, like, especially for him to go, no, yeah, this is legit, I'm all about life. And then for Superman, at who, you know, like, they even say he's the most human person, for him to actually go, no, I want to be dead, this is awful, this is the worst thing,
Yeah, he's human.
was the best.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I like the Superman stuff. I'm with Phil on this. Like, I thought that the, like, even that one scene, like, one of his best one-liners for me was when, you know, he comes back and, I think it's Wonder Woman and Cyborg are fighting. What's the fucking villain's name? I don't even remember his name.
Steppenwolf.
Steppenwolf, because fuck him. He was so lame.
Stephen Wolf.
And he's just like, oh, is this guy still bothering you? And then he just fucking whoops his goddamn ass and just that's it. Like, he puts the pound on him and it's kind of it. Like,
So I had big problems with Steppenwolf's portrayal here. So I'll lay out a few of the reasons. One is that it's a little bit unclear. I got something from it, but we'll see if you guys also got this. It's a little bit unclear what he's doing,
Yeah.
why he's there. So, what I interpreted is that because he failed in the past on Earth when he was stopped by the Amazons, the Atlanteans, and the humans, because
And the
he was
fucking
stopped,
Green Lanterns, because that was the coolest thing.
Yeah, before you go into great detail, the flashback scene was very cool.
I thought that was really cool with all the
was
gods
awesome.
and everything. Like,
solid.
I was all about that.
Yeah. So, because he was stopped, I interpreted that Darkseid exiled him from Apocalypse. Who knows where he was at? The Mother Boxes summon him back as if they have agency of their own to reunite them together. Why they have the ability to do that is beyond me.
Unclear.
And it's not explained, and it's very weird. And so he wants to accomplish that, to raise Earth so that Darkseid will accept him back into his good graces. Is that what you all got?
Yeah, he made a comment about
Yeah.
wanting to become one of the new gods, so that was the interpretation I got as well.
Right.
Man, none of the new god shit, Mother Box shit, Darkseid shit was explained. None of it made any sense.
Awful.
If you are not a Jack Kirby guy or a DC guy, you're gonna have no idea what the fuck's happening. And honestly, even if you are, you'll probably have no idea what the fuck is happening. And the reality is, all the Steppenwolf shit sucked, and that's this is what it is.
Did anybody else think he looked like Thanos too? Like, I just, something about his face and the way he talked, like, made me, I was like, he just looks like skinny Thanos.
His lines were terrible.
His lines were awful. But let me take it back. Let me take it back for a moment. So then he's built up as this big threat. In the fight with all of the people, right? In the flashback sequence, he's dominant. He does a great job. And then they kind of, unite, and it's like hundreds of thousands of people or whatever who stop him. Then he comes back, he fights the Amazons, he trounces them, he trounces Aquaman, and all that, and it's like, okay, he's a real threat. When they actually fight him, though, I never got any sense or impression that they were in danger. The only thing he does is he rips off Cyborg's leg, but Cyborg's a robot. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Superman beats him up. So it'd be like if the Hulk versus Loki in Avengers 1 was the entirety of their battle. Like, if that was the only thing that happened, that's what this was like. And it was really bad. I've never seen a more non-threatening villain ever in any movie that I've seen that had a villain.
The thing that actually bugs me about it too is, like, this is what I wanted the ending of Wonder Woman to be. Like, I wanted Ares to be that kind of inert kind of villain and just end it. And it was like, that's what we got here, where we needed a bigger threat to justify the Justice League. Where it's like, Superman could have fucking done this by himself. Like, if the entire movie was, we gotta get the Justice League together so we can resurrect Superman and then we can all go home. Like, that's...
Even if this was a Wonder Woman Aquaman team up, it felt like they could have taken him. Like, if it was a whole movie about them fighting Steppenwolf, honestly, that would have been a better movie.
Dude, legit, I feel like just Batman and Wonder Woman could have taken care of this too. They're like, we need a team or whatever. And it's like, but like, did you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Batman could have fucking made some computer program or some shit. I don't know. Like, it just feels like a thing of like, I don't know.
I gotta be honest. I like Superman just coming in and walloping him.
I mean, it worked.
It was legit.
Cool.
Yeah. It was just like, it cheapened it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk real fast about the supporting cast. It's going to be real fast because there wasn't really much to say about them. You had Lois Lane, who was a plot device again.
Ooh, thirsty. She's a thirsty girl.
That joke got a pop in the theater that me and Phil were at. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. I laughed.
Like,
out loud.
just like her fucking face, Amy Adams. Like, she doesn't get much, but I do really like her as Lois. Like, I don't think it's her fault.
Did you guys know that's an oral sex joke?
I didn't.
Like, legitimate, this isn't a joke. I had no idea that's what it was.
Oh my god, Cale.
I'm not.
Grandpa!
Listen, I legitimately, I thought it meant like what it means. Like, I want like attention. Like, I was like, I had no idea.
Just wants a very specific kind of attention.
Well,
if you know what I mean.
until Jess told me, no, it's like a.
Well, when
I went, what?
When you say someone's
put that
thirsty,
in the
it
movie?
means they want sex. Lots of it.
And then of course I think we also had
Martha Kent.
Yeah. I mean I guess I liked her stuff. I don't know.
Or
I wish there was more to. Yeah, I wish there was more to say about supporting cast. Alfred was there.
Alfred did some things and made some jokes about Batman not having sex.
Commissioner Gordon
was there.
That was the most disappointing one because I fucking love J.K. Simmons and he didn't even get anything. Like he got nothing to work with. Like he dumped information and got left on a rooftop and that was like it.
My favorite supporting character by far was Cyborg's father. I really liked that actor. And I mean, back from Terminator 2, this almost felt like if the guy from Terminator 2 didn't die and he grew up, and his son grew up and he, did this, like that's what it felt like.
He was in Smallville too.
Yeah. So I really liked him and I'm interested to see where they're going to take that dynamic in a Cyborg solo film if it happens. But, this movie didn't have much in the way of supporting characters, really at all.
Have you read the Cyborg comics, Sean?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
I was saying to Pete after the movie that they don't do a great job of establishing Ma Kent and Lois in this movie, or presumably in Batman vs Superman, which I didn't see. But I was able to fill in the blanks just because, like, I read enough books. I know how it's supposed to be, so it's like I'll give it some slack, knowing context that's not explained in this movie, which is not an excuse, but whatever.
Like it did feel like a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, like newly married relationship, but it was also still kind of like there's nothing here.
Yeah, I mean they didn't know each other that well. Superman died before they really got to have that relationship, so that actually worked for me. And I love that the conversation that they had was more about Lois Lane's career, with Superman's death as a backdrop versus it being about Superman's death. That was cool.
How's that for this fucking shitty movie passing the Bechdel test? Squeaking right by.
Yep.
They were still talking about Superman in that conversation.
They mentioned him, but the convo was definitely about her career.
Which she can't do because Superman died.
Well, that's all right, but that's the character's issue. That's not the point of that talk.
It's grief.
The point of that talk is...
I don't know.
The point of that talk is Ma Kent sort of saying, hey, listen, you were great at what you did. You need to get back on the horse. You're thirsty. Go get it done. And she has this realization of like, oh, okay, maybe you're right. But I'm still grieving over the loss of Superman. I thought that worked out great. I love that.
I think Cale's sentimentality is right, but it barely passes the Bechdel test. I think it squeaks by.
I would be interested to hear what people more qualified than us think about that.
I think the reason it's so bad is because, again, this is another thing that is actually undercut because Superman comes back to life. Like, if the movie had not had Superman come back and then she wrote a story because she was inspired, because the Justice League inspired Hope again or whatever, and she came back and was like, I've overcome my grief and I'm going to write my next best story, like, that would...
Or even if they stuck with, no, Superman's not in this movie. What are you talking about? No. And didn't put him on any of the marketing, took him out of the posters. If they stuck with that might have worked.
So let's talk about the end. I mean, there's not a ton to say, I guess, but movie ends.
It sure does.
It just kind of ends.
As they tend to do.
My parking was $10. So
this movie had like the worst ending of any superhero movie I've seen in a long time because it just ends. There's nothing.
It was so surprising. Like, it was literally just like, oh, okay, we're done. All right, like, I guess.
Yep. And so before we wrap up, let's talk about the after credit scenes. The mid one, which was the Flash
loved it
versus Superman race.
I loved that.
Any comic book fan worth their salt was so excited about that. That's so cool. That's so quintessential.
Even
and they got it in.
The dialogue exchange was so good. Like Superman saying, like, "Well, if I win, you're off the team."
Like that. Yeah. Like I don't know. I love that. I love their dynamic for sure. And I think I don't know. I really like some of the Superman moments. Man.
Every Superman moment's awesome.
For me, especially going into Man of Steel, so many years ago.
You're so old, Grandpa.
There was like 5 years ago.
That's not that long.
Carry on.
It is in movie time. But like again, I didn't see BVS, and Man of Steel really ruined my portrayal of Henry Cavill Superman. I after seeing these moments, I do kind of see that Henry Cavill could be a good Superman, but for me, he's forever attached to the Zack Snyder DC stuff, and it's been ruined for me.
That's a shame. That's a damn shame.
Let's table that talk for a little bit. Then we had the final after credit scene, which was, of course, being in the prison and trying to get Lex Luthor. There's an officer trying to get Lex Luthor's attention. He goes over. The person is not Lex Luthor. He's some insane person laughing like a hyena. And then it cuts to a boat that Deathstroke comes onto, meets up with Lex Luthor, and essentially Lex says, "Hey, Superman has a team. He's back. Shouldn't we have a league of our own?" And then it kind of ends there. What do you guys think about that?
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a decent scene. Deathstroke looks dope,
right?
Yeah.
His fucking costume is sick.
It was amazing.
He's got the Slade Wilson look, like that, the hair, the eye patch, and the goatee.
Yeah, I was all about it, man.
I saw that and I thought, I can get behind a Deathstroke movie.
Yeah,
but Luthor might be all right.
Wouldn't you guys say that was one of the most accurate costumes ever?
Yeah, like it doesn't even look like it's been adapted. Like it just look, or you know what I mean, right? Like it's not been movie-ized. It's just like, this is just Deathstroke.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It's a little more robotic, but
I think I would say for me, I think it did look movieized.
Yeah.
But I think it, like, as far as movieized costumes go, like it was very good. I think I like the one from Arrow a little bit better. I feel like it's a little bit closer. But I did like it. Like it looked awesome.
And then are you guys interested in the prospect of either or both, I guess, because this is like a Legion of Doom formation type thing. Would you want to see them be the villains of a potential Justice League 2, or do you want to see them get their own movie?
Definitely not their own movie, but I would love to see them be the villains in Justice League 2, because wouldn't that be a good reason to actually have the fucking Justice League?
I'd want to see a sequel. This cast and their interactions made me want to see them in a better movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
I agree with those things. The only problem that I have is so you jump through enough hoops to establish these characters. Now, how are they going to establish the rest of the villains that they would have to bring in to make a legitimate Legion of Doom?
My thing was they'll probably do it through the spin-off movies. So we'll probably see Black Manta in Aquaman, and then my bet is they would use Zoom as the Flash villain, because Jeff Johns has such a hard-on for speedster villains that it's not even funny.
I feel like the entire thing of like the whole unsolved mystery of Barry's mother's murder too and everything, like I'm sure that'll come into play in his movie, and maybe that'll implicate a character like that, an evil speedster, whether it's Zoom.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get one of the Flash's rogues in the Legion of Doom. I feel like this, what I know of this version of Lex Luthor, which is very little, but I feel like he would go after the most powerful people, which would be Zoom or the equivalent.
Yeah, and there are some other questions like who represents Superman? Is it Lex? Does he put on the big mech suit and do battle, or is it Brainiac? Does he create Metallo? There's like a lot of questions there. Is Deathstroke representing Batman's villains, or do they bring in another one? Do we get Cheetah? Lots of questions. But overall, the movie was fun and flimsy. All right, so that's going to wrap up our conversation about Justice League. Let us know what you thought about the movie. If you have seen it, you can write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com and write in with a random question, a buy or sell, or thoughts about this episode. You can also leave us a rating and a comment on iTunes or your podcast hosting platform of choice. We are on all social media platforms at The Comics Pals. Check us out on there. And of course, we are on YouTube, where you can watch all of our exclusive content that we've got on there. In addition to this, which you can like, share with your friends, leave a comment about, and subscribe. As far as YouTube exclusive content, New York Comic Con, that was, a month ago. But we were there, and it was a good time. So check out those interviews. And we've got Pals Plays that are up and running, which are awesome. So give those a like and a check out if you're into those games that we are currently playing. Pete, what are we playing over there?
Right now we're going through Dishonored, Life is Strange, Shovel Knight, Super Mario Odyssey, and we've got a couple other ones cooking for you that'll be coming out in the weeks to come that I don't want to spoil, but go check them out.
Awesome. So yeah,
Super Mario Odyssey just started, didn't it?
Yeah. We're have episode 2 going up this week.
Cool. So let's do some plugs, Pete.
Cool. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us here in another episode of The Comics Pals. You can also check out our sister show, The Video Game Pals, with me and Sean, which posts the day after The Comics Pals, and we talk about video games and all that kind of fun stuff. So go check that out. We've also got our other show, The Riverdale Review, with me, Marco, and Cale, where we talk about Riverdale, and we usually have a guest on every week. It's a really fun time if you're a fan of the show, so go check that out as well. If you guys want to get some more content from me, you can check out my writing over at cbr.com. I currently have 2 articles up that are, still making me money. One about 15 banned or censored Pokemon cards, and then another one about 15 basically just 15 disturbing Disney comics from over the years. So both of them are 2 I'm actually really proud of. So I would really really like it if you'd go check them out, help me pay the bills a little bit. And then you can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at @loud_Pete. Talk to me about Justice League or check out cute pictures of my cat.
Awesome. Cale?
You can find my comics at Comixology at Panels Comics. We are on Facebook and Twitter at Panels Comics. On Twitter, it's Panels Comics with an X. Please buy my book From the Deep. There are 2 issues of it up now, I believe. Help inspire this career I'm trying to make because I don't want to get a real job. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TotoIntow. That's TOTOINTOW.
Phil?
I saw this really good tweet the other day from comedian Scott Aukerman where he said that the mother boxes in Justice League should have been called Martha boxes. I think Sean and I are doing a Survivor Series review this weekend. Right?
Wow, the whole reality show Survivor, huh?
Yeah, we're doing a whole series.
Wow. that'll be
a
interesting.
15-minute episode. And then you can check out me on Twitter and Instagram at CyborgBebop.
Marco?
You can find me at Mr. Marco Animoto on Instagram and Twitter. That's it.
Cool.
Nice. And I am on Twitter only at Sean Soapbox. Hit me with those hate
best
messages about my rant regarding the defense of Joss Whedon, because I know that it's popular right now to dislike him. And whatever else you want to talk about. So, with that, we're the Comics Pal signing off. Take care, guys.
See you next week.
Bye.